Chapter 24. Pontifex. Pontifex marched them down the corridor. Glissa and Bruina were held firmly in the grasp of two guards behind the Vidalcan. Their feet swayed above the floor as the guards flew through the endless corridors of Lumengrid. The third silver guard hovered next to Pontifex, carrying Glissa's sword. The elf looked at Bruina. The guard had its arms wrapped around her, holding her arms against her sides. From what she had seen, Glissa didn't think Bruina could cast spells without her hands free. Instead, Glissa concentrated on her own hands. She tried to summon the power she used to destroy the Aerothins in the Tangle, but control over that power still eluded her. She stared at her sword just out of reach. She couldn't wait for Slobad and Bosch. They seemed overdue. She needed to distract Pontifex and get her hands on her sword. "Where are you taking us?" she asked.
"Aye, to the Synod, of course. For you, my dear. And I must thank you, Bruina, for delivering her to me. Will finally buy me a seat on the council."
Glissa glared at Bruina. The human maid shook her head. "No, I never meant to."
"Of course you didn't mean to, but I knew it was only a matter of time. Bruina has longed to enter the pool of knowledge ever since her father died for his indiscretions."
"If you've known about her treachery for so long, why not just kill her?"
"Because it's so much easier to keep an eye on that big house of hers. Think of it as an experiment in human nature. My hypothesis, and it appears the data has proved it correct, was that given enough time, Bruina would provide me with what her father couldn't."
"A seat on the Synod," stated Glissa. Pontifex turned to Glissa and smiled.
"You're intelligent, especially for a warrior.
It might prove interesting, once all of this is over, to study your race for possible use." Glissa ignored the threat. Instead, she probed for more information. The Vidalcan seemed all too easy to draw out. "You exposed her father. You had him killed to gain favor with the Synod?"
"Actually, it was the Synod's decision to have Donal killed," said Pontifex.
"Which was a shame. I was sorry to see it happen, as he was an able assistant and brilliant for a human. You see, I was more interested to find out what a taste of the pool would have done to his abilities." "You sent him there. He respected you, said you were different from the other Vidalcan, but you sent him into the pool just to get a seat on the Synod." Pontifex stared at Bruina for a moment and smirked. "You humans never cease to amaze me. Your vision is so limited that you can't even notice the large ramifications of your own actions. Your father's death was not the path to the Synod, as you can see, since I am still searching for that position. No, I had much larger plans for your father after his trip to the pool, but I've always been patient, and that's why I am a respected researcher, and that patience has paid off. By delivering Glissa, my seat on the Synod is assured." "Why am I so important?" asked Glissa. They were ascending to a curving stairway, and Pontifex fell silent again. Glissa wondered if the Vidalcan didn't know or just didn't want to tell her. Then she saw another Vidalcan coming towards them down the stairs. They had passed many human mages on their way, but none had even glanced at Glissa and Bruina as they went by, and Pontifex hadn't even noticed the humans when they passed. Evidently, Pontifex didn't care if another Vidalcan knew what he was doing. Glissa half hoped a dispute might erupt over who got to deliver her to the Synod. It might give her a chance to get her sword. However, the other Vidalcan didn't give Pontifex or the guards a second look. Apparently, disciplining humans was an ordinary occurrence. "Do you mean to tell me that you haven't worked out why you're so important, my dear? Perhaps I was wrong about your species after all." "I know it has something to do with the serum," said Glissa. "Are you afraid I'll expose your extermination of the blink moths?" The Vidalcan's laugh grated against Glissa's back teeth. It sounded like someone scraping a Vorak tusk against a tangle tree. "Who would tell us? Who would believe you and have enough power to stop us?" "Memnarch?" asked Glissa.
Pontifex stopped at the top of the stairs and turned, towering over Glyssa.
What do you know of Memnarch? He asked.
I know that you fear him, said Glyssa, undaunted by the Vidalcan's presence.
Fear him? Snorted Pontifex. Memnarch is our god. We revere his name and serve at his command. If Memnarch commanded your death, it would be a pleasure to carry out the deed.
Had Memnarch not commanded her death? Glyssa didn't understand. She remembered something Strang had mentioned right before he died. He said Glyssa was in the Vidalcan's way. She could use that. Memnarch didn't order my death, did he? Someone has. It was the Synod, wasn't it? Why have the Vidalcan forsaken their god, Pontifex? Pontifex took a step down the hallway towards Glyssa and pointed his staff at her face.
I will kill you myself for even suggesting such a thing.
Before the Vidalcan could unleash a spell, Glyssa heard a rumbling from far below. It was time. Bosch and Slowbad had started the diversion. The rumbling grew louder, and Pontifex stumbled a step as the floor beneath him began to shake. Explosions rocked the base of the looming grid. The tower swayed back and forth in front of them. The guards bumped into one another as their thrusters tried to compensate for the moving floor and walls. Another, larger explosion shook the tower. Pontifex lost his footing on the unstable steps and pitched forward down the stairs. The falling Vidalcan barreled into Glyssa and the guard. Pontifex grabbed for the guard, but Glyssa kicked him away. He dropped his staff and tumbled down the steps. The force of her kick slammed the guard into the wall. He lost his grip on Glyssa, and she fell to the steps. The elf kicked out at the guard holding Brenna, sending it to the opposite wall where it dropped the female mage.
Brenna, my sword, quick!
Brenna waved her hands at the third guard and muttered a quick spell. The guard flew up into the air and smashed its crystal globe into the ceiling. Glyssa covered her face as the guard exploded. When she opened her eyes, the sword was in front of her. She grabbed the sword and swung it at the guard behind her, slicing through the guard's silver arm as it reached forward to grab her again. A second swing cut off its head. The guard's body fell to the ground and its head rolled down the stairs past Pontifex. The researcher was reaching for his staff. Out of the corner of her eye, Glyssa saw the last guard raise its weapon arm and point it at her. She dived past the advancing Vidalcan just before the guard shot. She rolled to a stop and looked back. The Vidalcan was pinned against the wall of the stairs, a harpoon jutting from his robes. Before the guard could get another shot off, Verena waved her hands and tossed it down the steps with a blast of air. The resulting explosion told the woman that they were now alone with Pontifex. The Vidalcan had all four arms on the harpoon and was trying to pull it out. His arms were thin and frail. Glyssa wondered if Vidalcan bodies were as pathetic under those robes. She picked up his staff and watched him struggle. I'm guessing those spindly arms can't do much beyond hold this staff, she said to the pinned researcher. All of your power is right here, isn't it? Glyssa snapped the staff over her knee and tossed the broken pieces down the stairs. Your only hope of getting out of this alive is to do exactly as we say.
Kill him, said Verena, coming up behind Glyssa. If you won't do it, then get out of the way.
Verena waved her hands at Pontifex and sent a blast of wind at the Vidalcan. He slammed back against the wall and the harpoon barb. Pontifex screamed in pain. Luckily, his scream was just one of many echoing through the corridors. Human mages ran up and down the stairs as explosions continued to reverberate through the complex. Nobody seemed to know what was happening or what they should do. Their little tableau on the stairs was just a minor drama amidst the chaos of the lumen grid. Glyssa wheeled on Verena. We need him alive, she said.
He killed my father. He deserves to die.
Then your father died for nothing. Pontifex can get us into the pool chamber. He can probably get us the serum we need. We can enter the pool together. Use the man who betrayed your father to realize your father's dream.
Why should I help you? Moaned Pontifex.
Because I will let you live if you help us.
Why exactly should I trust you, who blaspheme our god and come here to destroy us? Asked Pontifex.
You can't, said Glyssa. She grabbed the harpoon and wrenched it to the side. Pontifex screamed again. but your only other choice is to die right here.
Fine. I'll take you to the pool chamber, and it'll even get the serum for you, but you'll never get out of here alive. We'll see. But for now, shut up. You talk too much. Hold his arm still. Verona cast a spell, and a vortex of wind surrounded the Vidalcan, pinning all four arms against his side. Glissa reached up just outside the swirling vortex and grasped the harpoon. With a quick twist of her wrists, she snapped the shaft off. She then took her sword and sliced through the head of the harpoon behind Pontifex. Pontifex slumped forward, perhaps weak from loss of blood. The whirlwind kept him from falling. Glissa put her hands up near the wound and summoned her own mana. Her palms glowed green and she grasped the broken shaft again. She had through enough healing energy down the harpoon to close the wound around the weapon. I'll get that out after you deliver the serum. Until then, it will be a reminder of who's in charge here. Glissa twisted the shaft before letting go, then pulled his robe over the broken end of the harpoon to hide it. Lead the way. They followed Pontifex through the chaos and panic of the tower. Glissa held her sword ready under her cloak and told Verona to keep a reserve of mana ready should she need to bind Pontifex again. Most of the humans they saw rushed past the trio, giving the Vidalcan a wide berth. Luckily the group didn't see any other Vidalcan. After a while the explosion stops, but the chaos didn't. The tower still continued to sway, and the humans seemed intent on getting out as quickly as possible. Pontifex had trouble walking through the rocking tower. It seemed to be a lot harder for him than for Glissa and the humans. He kept falling into the wall as he moved. She hoped that was what was keeping the other Vidalcan holed up in their chambers. They reached another stairway, but it was jammed with people pushing their way down towards the lower levels of the swaying tower. When the humans saw Pontifex, though, they fell silent and parted in front of him, just like in the market. The sea of people closed much more quickly behind the Vidalcan as the panic made humans reckless. Even around one of their masters, Bruina and Glissa had to jostle their way through to keep up. As they walked down yet another curving corridor, Glissa saw another Vidalcan coming towards them. He was having trouble walking as well. "Who is that?" she hissed. "Iapetus," said Pontifex. "Synod?" "No, a minor researcher." "Get rid of him," said Glissa. Pontifex stopped in front of Iapetus. Glissa motioned to Bruina to stay behind Pontifex while she moved up beside him to keep an eye on the exchange. "What is happening, Lord Pontifex?" "I do not know, though I have heard rumors of an invasion of some sort, and I think you should get to the lower levels and secure the humans." Glissa shot Pontifex a glance and prodded him with the butt of her sword from underneath her cloak. Pontifex continued more succinctly. "I will secure the upper levels." Iapetus turned to pass them, but Pontifex stopped him with a hand on the young researcher's shoulder. "If you see Janus—" But Bruina bumped into him, jarring the harpoon lodged inside his body. Pontifex moaned. "Tell him I have the situation under control here. Now go. Hurry." Iapetus trotted down the corridor and out of sight around a curve. Glissa prodded Pontifex again with his sword. "Watch your mouth," she said. "Who is Janus?" "Lord Janus is the leader of the Synod, who will—" Glissa pushed Pontifex forward. "That's all I need to know," she said, and fell in behind the Vidalcan as they made their way down the corridor. "Sounds like someone I should like to meet." "I believe you already have," said Pontifex, "and the next time you two meet, I don't think you will be so lucky." "Just keep moving. How much farther to the pool chamber?" "It is just ahead," said Pontifex. As they continued round the curve, a door came into view. Two guards stood to either side of the door. Pontifex broke into a run and screamed, "Guards, attack the humans!" "Blair," said Glissa. She whipped off the cloak and brought up her sword. She ran after Pontifex, using his flowing robes to shield her from the guards. Two harpoons flew past her on either side of the running Vidalcan. She heard a whoosh of wind from behind her. Glissa thrust her sword down between the
Vidalcan's legs to trip him and dodged to the side as he fell. Another harpoon came directly at her, but Glissa rebounded off the wall from its path. The large missile skidded off the wall, gouging out a chunk of the silvering metal before clattering to the floor. Glissa stepped on Pontifex and leaped at the nearest guard. She flew through the air, leading with her sword, and embedded the blade into the chest of the metal creature. Glissa dropped to the floor and lifted the guard into the air with her sword. It was amazingly light. The guard tried to propel itself sideways with its hover thruster. Glissa was pulled over and began to lose her balance. She adjusted and used the extra momentum to toss the impaled guard at its partner. It smashed into the second guard just as that one unleashed a blast of lightning. The guards crashed to the ground in a pile, and the bolt flew high, scorching the walls above Glissa's head. That was too close, the elf snapped. She thrust her sword over her head and jumped into the air above the prone guards. As she came down, Glissa swung her sword down through both guards, cutting one in half and taking the head off the other underneath. After she landed, Glissa beheaded the second guard just to be sure, then kicked both heads down the corridor away from Bruenna and Pontifex. She turned around to find Bruenna holding their hostage to the ground with a wall of wind.
"You look like you have everything under control," said Bruenna.
Glissa smiled. "Looks like we were right. Let him up. It's time he opened that door." Glissa grabbed Pontifex by the shoulder and pulled him to his feet. She kept one hand on the harpoon shaft hidden in his robe in case he tried anything else. She pushed him towards the door. "Open it." "I'm sorry, but that might be a bit of a problem," began Pontifex. Glissa jostled the harpoon, causing the Vidalcan to moan in pain. "Why?" "Without the guards to verify my identity, the door will only open for a member of the Synod." "Try anyway," said Glissa. Pontifex waved his hand over the door and muttered a few words. Glissa saw mana streak from his hand to the door and another bolt of mana streak back and spread across his fingers, but nothing happened. The door remained closed. He can do some magic without a staff, Glissa realized. I wonder how helpless he is really right now. "Only a member of the Synod can open that door for you, now." He smirked at them. "Too bad your father wasn't of more help to me, my dear Bruenna, or I might have the powers you so badly need right now." "Let's see you smile after I crack open your dome," said Bruenna. She advanced on Pontifex, waving her hands in front of her, mana built up in her palms. "Wait," said Glissa. "Why? He's no more good to us." "He may be yet. I have an idea." Glissa reached up and yanked on the leather strap she wore around her neck. The leather snapped, and Glissa pulled the remnants of the strap from beneath her blouse. A shriveled thumb and forefinger dangled on the end of the leather. If Pontifex was telling the truth about her previous encounter, these belonged to Janus, the leader of the Synod. Glissa tossed the leather strap to Pontifex. "Hold these in your hand and try again," she said. Pontifex looked at the severed digit and shuddered. "Where did you get—" Glissa twisted the harpoon shaft again. "Don't worry about that. Just do as you're told." Pontifex curled his thumb around the severed ends of the digits and held up his palm towards the door again. His hand shook as he performed the door-opening spell, but this time when the energy spread across the fingers it seemed to linger on the extra finger and thumb for a second. The door disappeared in front of them. "Inside," said Glissa. She pushed Pontifex through the door and followed him into the room. The pool chamber was perfectly round and larger than the central courtyard at Taj Nar. The ceiling overhead was domed, giving Glissa the feeling that she was standing in an upside-down bowl. The entire room was made of the same shimmering silver as the rest of the complex, but the light from the walls seemed to flicker around them. At first, Glissa thought there might be a problem, that perhaps Slobad's explosion had somehow affected the chamber, but then she realized it was just the reflection of the pool on the walls. The pool of knowledge itself dominated the center of the large room, but it was difficult to see where the floor ended and the pool began. It looked very much like the Quicksilver Sea. Silver-like, the surrounding floor, but alive. Ripples moved randomly through the surface, going in several directions at once, often colliding with each other and starting anew.
The only way to see the edge of the pool was to watch the ripples hit the side and bounce back towards the middle. Light from the walls reflected off the ripples and bounced all over the room. Glissa moved to the edge and looked down into the pool. Unlike the Quicksilver Sea, she could see down into the pool of knowledge, but her vision was distorted by fleeting images. They almost looked like reflections, but the images moved and changed as the ripples washed over them. Glissa saw herself walking around the room, even though she never moved from the pool. It was hypnotic and a little scary. She moved away from the edge and shook her head to clear her mind. Across the pool, Glissa saw another door. "Where does that lead?" she asked.
"That is where we keep the serum, which, as you know, is necessary to activate the pool. Without the serum, you cannot control the pool, cannot tune into the visions you wish to view. You are at the pool's mercy, and—"
"Be quiet already. Brenna, go with Pontifex and get the 2 vials of serum. Be careful." Pontifex moved around the pool to the other side, followed closely by Verena. Glissa watched them, but kept an eye on the door and corridor as well. Pontifex waved his hand over the door and it disappeared. Glissa glanced over and saw the room beyond was larger than just a storage room. "Look out!" she shouted, but it was too late. Pontifex dived to the side as a harpoon flew past him. Verena tried to jump from the way, but the missile slammed into her thigh. The impact spun the mage around. She fell hard on the floor beside the door. The head of the harpoon and part of her bones stuck up from the back of her leg. A squad of guards glided into the room in front of another Vidalcan.
"Hello, Glissa. I am pleased to see you again."